everyone. My name is Jess. Welcome back to Glue La La. Today I have 3 farmhouse projects that are great for beginner crafters because they don't take a lot of materials and they're pretty quick to put together. And if you're a seasoned crafter, these projects are great if you're looking for something quick to do. All right, everyone, let's get started. For the first project, I found these little cathedral windows at the Dollar Tree, and I really like how it looked on its own, so I just took the tag off of the front, but I kept it because we're going to use that later. Then I used one of these framed wall arts also from the Dollar Tree, and I just removed all of the hinges from the back of the frame. And then I lined the cathedral window up in the center of the frame. Now this is the back side here, so to attach the window to the frame, I'm just running a little bit of hot glue along the back side, and then I'm using a craft stick to hold the 2 pieces together. That way none of the hot glue would have been able to seep through the front because we're only adding it onto the back. And then for the side pieces, I just cut down some craft sticks so that they wouldn't show through the top of the window. Once all of the craft sticks were in place, I ran a bead of hot glue along the edges of each of them just to help make the piece a bit more sturdy. Next, I had one of these little crates on hand that you can find at the Dollar Tree, and I had used this in another project and I had stained it with the antique wax by Waverly. But I wanted it to be a little bit lighter for this project, so I just sanded off most of the antique wax and it lightened it up a good bit. Then I took some of this black and white stripe ribbon that I had found at, I think, Michael's over the holidays, and I just ran it around the center of the crate. Now, whenever I use ribbon like this, I'm usually really careful about where I put the hot glue because it tends to seep through and you can see it a little bit. So if you're going to add ribbon onto something like this and you're afraid the glue's going to show through, just make sure you add a little bit to the corners. That way you won't see it. So then that piece that we had taken off the front of the window, I'm just adding a piece of a craft stick to the back of it just to help make it a little bit more sturdy because this is just cardboard. And then I'm hot gluing that onto the front of the crate. There was a little piece of glue left on the cathedral window, but I used my box scraper and it came off pretty easy. It did leave a mark, but I knew I would be able to cover that up later. To attach the crate to the window and the frame, I just used a little bit of hot glue and I centered the crate onto the window and the frame, making sure that the bottom of the crate lined up with the bottom of the frame. Then to help make it a little more secure, I added a craft stick on the seam between the crate and the frame. To finish this off, I just added a little bit of floral foam and then I started adding some greenery and some flowers that I liked. This bunch came from the Dollar Tree. I really liked the greenery that was with it, and I really liked the white flowers with the frame and the window. And I didn't want to glue the flowers and the greenery into the foam, so I'm just using a chopstick to poke it down into the foam. That way I can take it out later if I want to and change it for something else. I love the versatility of this kind of project because even though I chose to leave the elements as they were, I didn't choose to paint the frame or the window or anything. You could definitely do that and distress it and kind of change it to fit your home's decor. For the second project, I'm taking a jar that I had on hand. I think there was some kind of sauce in this jar. And I'm using these jumbo craft sticks that I found at Walmart, and I measured the height of a jar and I'm just cutting the sticks down to go slightly above the top of the jar. And if you've watched my videos before, you know I love to use my paper trimmer to cut craft sticks. I just think it makes them so even and they're always the same height. Next, I'm using a little bit of hot glue and I'm avoiding the very top of the stick because it is gonna stick out from the lip of the jar just a bit. And I'm just hot gluing these sticks the whole way around the jar. Now my jar took about 10 sticks and then I did have to take one extra stick and I had to cut it down lengthwise just a bit to be able to fit in between the 2 sticks because there wasn't quite big enough of a gap to fit a whole stick in there. But I used my paper trimmer for that also. If you choose to do something like this with a paper trimmer, just be careful though because it is kind of a narrow piece, so I used an old floral stem to hold it in place so that I didn't get my finger stuck in there. So then once I glued that little stick in there, I wasn't too worried that it was a different size. You can't really tell, and I figured I would just keep it towards the back so you wouldn't be able to notice. So I've been seeing all over YouTube, people are mixing paint with baking powder to kind of create a terracotta look. So I decided to try that on this project, and I'm using the color Mineral by Waverly because that's one of my favorite colors of theirs. So I started out by mixing in some baking powder, and I used way too much baking powder because it got so chunky. So I had to use so much paint in here to thin this out. And in the end, I don't know if I didn't have the ratio right. I'm gonna have to research this a little bit more, but after I got done painting the sticks with this, it just kind of looked like regular chalk paint, even though the paint, look, you can see how thick it is, but for some reason after it dried, it just looked like I had painted it with chalk paint. So I don't know, I'm gonna look around and try to figure out what I did wrong. I still like the look of it. It just, I thought it would have a little bit more texture. Like I thought it would look more like clay than paint, but it's fine. And I actually was inspired to do this piece by something that I saw on Amazon, which I will show you right here. So I was hoping that the paint on the sticks would have had more texture like the picture on Amazon, but like I said, it's fine. I still like it. So I found this burlap ribbon at the Dollar Tree, and I just measured up about 1.25 inches from the bottom and then 1.25 inches from the top of the jar, and I'm just using that as a guide so that there was an even amount of space between the bottom of the jar and the ribbon, and then the top of the jar and the ribbon. And then I just used a little bit of hot glue, and you can see that I'm keeping the seam of the ribbon where that smaller stick is. That way, since that's kind of like the bad side, I can make sure that I keep that on the back. And I really love how this came together. I chose to just throw a couple bunches of flowers inside mine, and I really like these flowers from the Dollar Tree this year. I found a couple at the beginning of spring, and as my store keeps putting them out, I keep buying them because I just think they're so pretty. They have a bunch of different ones too. Okay, so for the last project, the Dollar Tree always has versions of these gift boxes. So I took 3 of the hexagon boxes and I gave them 2 coats of this Rust-Oleum ultra matte white paint, and these are the jumbo craft sticks that I get from Walmart, and you can see they're a little bit bigger than the tongue depressor size sticks. So for the lids of the box, I just measured the sides and I cut my craft sticks down for each of the 3 sizes, and I knew I would need 6 sticks for each of the lids. So once I had all of my craft sticks cut down to fit around the edges of the lids, then all I had to do was simply hot glue them around the sides, and I did that for all 3 lids. If you're interested in any of the tools that I use, like my glue gun or my paper trimmer, I always link those in the description box below. Now you could leave the craft sticks just how they are, but I decided to take a little bit of the Plaster Color by Waverly, and I'm just doing a dry brushing technique, and I'm just kind of dry brushing it around the sticks there because I think it just made the sticks stand out just a little bit less, which was kind of the look that I was going for. And again, I did that on all 3 of the lids. So for the box part, I'm using some of this nautical rope from the Dollar Tree, and it is 3 ropes wound into 1 rope. So I just unwound it a bit, so I was just using 1 strand of the rope, and I'm gluing that around the top of the box part. And this rope, because it was woven together, it is a little bit curly whenever you pull it apart. So you just have to keep the tension on it whenever you're gluing it around the top of the box. Because of the little waves in the rope. You just want to make sure you pull it tight before you actually stick it down. Once I had the rope on all 3 of the boxes, then I just used a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of the box, and I just glued it back inside of the lid. That way there was a little bit of trim on the back side and the rope was on the front. And I think these are so cute. And if I get some bigger clay pots, I'm going to put those inside the bigger two. But you could actually even use sawtooth hangers on the back of these if you wanted to hang them up and use them as little like shadow boxes on your wall too. Here's a final look at all three projects. I think my favorite was probably the first one. It was so easy to put together and you didn't have to wait for any paint to dry, which is even better. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you like these projects, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, make sure you're subscribed, ring that bell, do all the things. Have a great week and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!